What's happening, everybody, and welcome back to the Funky Brain Podcast. My name is Dennis, and this is my Funky Brain. Our guest today, she's a very accomplished and inspiring woman, and she does some really great work out in the world of mental health. In fact, she's the CEO of the Mental Health News Radio, which is a global network of podcasts focused on mental health and how it affects all aspects of our lives: emotional, physical, financial, spiritual, etc. And we had such an awesome talk when I was on her show a couple of weeks ago. We decided to continue the conversation here on the Funky Brain Podcast. But Mrs. Kirstin Walker, how are you doing today, Kristin?
I'm good. My funky brain is under my do-rag here.
Ooh, maybe I need one of those.
Well, I love tie-dye. And a friend of mine said, hey, I'll get you a tie-dye bandana. Because I shaved, or I didn't shave. I buzzed all my hair off in April of this year, just because I felt like it. And I've kept doing that. I absolutely love it. But, you know, the scalp does get cold, as you know. So I have found that a hat is too hot, but a do-rag is just right. So
yeah. Well, you're in North Carolina. So in Colorado, I need my hat on all the time. Like, I like my head. I think it looks okay.
Yeah, I have a nicely shaped scalp as well. I'm quite pleased with it. And I love the ability to just, rub. I love that. It's wonderful. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh, my hand is up here. I must have been doing that self-soothing at night.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, I'm so happy you have a nice head. As I mentioned, she's here to talk about the Mental Health News Radio and just about life in general. But so how are you doing in 2020? How is it working for you so far?
Whoo, it's been challenging. I've learned a lot. I've definitely reverted back to some gotcha behaviors that I thought, oh, I've worked through all those. And they reared their, I won't say ugly heads, because there's always lessons to be learned. But I've definitely had some things come up that I thought, oh, I thought I was done with that. And the shaman that I work with said, you're just checking your work during a difficult time. That's all you're doing. So it helped me not spiral down too many rabbit holes. But, it's been stressful. It's been more stressful with what I've seen happen to friends and colleagues and the things that have gone on in their lives. The pain for them and what they're going through has been just unreal.
But I think it's important to note, and, we're talking about mental health and sobriety, addiction, just all different types of issues. I think, when I think back to when this started, like when all the pandemic stuff, and we go back to February, March, do you remember it hit Italy first?
Yeah.
And I remember there was this interview with this guy in Italy, and all those people were dying. And he goes, you know what? Because they were ahead of us. And he said, you know what? You're going to go through a tough time as we're going into this quarantine. Use this time to do something productive, learn something you've never learned before. Now, we've all heard this before, but I heard this from him first in February. He's like, learn something new, learn how to dance, read a book, like do something you've always wanted to do. And you know what, that just stuck in my head this whole time. And it's really propelled me in a positive way. And I acknowledge everybody else's troubles for sure, but it's really helped me a lot just hearing that months ago.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there was a little bit of, go do something. I had a friend of mine that said, well, this is 2 weeks into the lockdown. He said, well, I've just built 17 planter boxes and we're redoing our whole garden. And I remember thinking, maybe not boast about that on Facebook because a lot of people are not feeling that way. And sometimes that can tend to make people that are struggling be like, I feel inadequate. So there's been an interesting sort of balance as to how much I share about what's going on, with me, because I don't want to dive into negativity, but I also know that if I do about something, that's okay. So I found there's been a lot of ability to give yourself permission to feel what you need to feel, to rest if you need to rest, to pull away from things if you need to pull away from them, because we have this huge thing going on that is going on all over the world that no one's experienced. So the permission giving has been very wonderfully received by me, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And I tell my clients that too. I say, look, if we're going through something, let's feel it. Why are we going through that? Let's learn the message that we're supposed to learn from this feeling: happy, mad, glad, sad, fearful, doubtful, resentful, whatever it is. Let's just stop for a little bit, figure it out, and then let's try to move beyond it. How can we move beyond it? But I like talking about it here on the podcast, because when people are listening, I want them to hear that, we all go through this shit. We'll feel it and be like, why am I going through this? But wait, you're Dennis and Kristin. You don't go through stuff.
Yes, we do.
Right.
I talk about it too. I've got a few shows that I do on the network. There's over 90 podcasts, and I do 3 of them. I'm a co-host on 2 of them, and I host one of them. But yeah, I definitely talk about what's going on, and give an update on how this day is going. So yeah, that's been great to give yourself permission to say, hey, this is how I feel today. And maybe last week when I was on, I was happy. I read another book. I did this, I did that. And maybe this week I got some news that was really unsettling and had to deal with some things that were uncomfortable. And so this week I'm, and it's been nice to be able to, I've always shared that way, but I guess that permission thing, having more permission to just, this is how it is today, right now. And that's okay.
It is okay. Yeah. And that's really important to bring about. And I'm happy we did. So tell us more about the Mental Health News Radio, how you got in. Tell us a little about your story. What got you into doing this in the first place?
Sure. I was a consultant. I still am dealing with technology and mental health. And I was asked to be a guest on a podcast. And this is 8 years ago. So people were like, podcast, that's never going to last, And it really went over well. And the host really loved our chemistry. And she asked me to come back and co-host. And we quickly found that she wanted to talk about all things physical health, and all I cared about was mental health. So we went our different ways, and I started my show, all, volunteer, doing this. And I just loved it. I was speaking at a lot of conferences about technology and mental health, and I would go there and do podcasts from the venues. And I just really enjoyed doing it. And I had a lot of people that wanted to co-host with me, and they finally, about 5 of them came to me and said, we'd like to do our own podcasts. It looks like this podcasting thing is going to stick around, Will you produce them for us and maybe create a company around that? And I remember my first response. I was sitting in the middle of just miles of cornfields in Iowa, helping a large network of agencies, mental health agencies, get on the same technology platform. And I was like, no, I don't even know what that would mean to set up some kind of network for podcasting. Who do I call to find out, but they basically, kind of stalked me until I said yes. And our goal the first year was to have 5 different shows on the air about different facets of mental health. And by August, we had 18 shows. And, now, like I said, we have over 90. And it's exciting. Everything from borderline personality disorder to avoidant disorder to autism to substance abuse to bipolar to anxiety. Just everything possible you can think of. Spirituality, business. Just it runs the gamut of the topics that get discussed. And we have millions of listeners across the network all over the globe. So it's exciting. It's exciting to be a part of something like this.
Yeah, that's huge, man. I'm considering joining it. Like you were like, oh, it would be nice to have.
We'd love it.
I know. I would love to be on the network. I like the variety, and I like that there's like all those different options in one area where somebody can go and be like, I'm feeling like this. Oh, look at this. Oh, maybe there's something there too. And so how many different shows are there?
There's over 90 shows, and we finally had to build a database into our site because there's so, a podcast, one single podcast can cover so many different topics. Even if that podcast is just dedicated to autism, they still can talk about everything from virtual reality to occupational therapy to medication. There's so many topics underneath even an umbrella topic. So we finally built a database into the website so that people can go. We get a lot of press inquiries too, because I did a lot of Skyped in news shows about mental health. But, now you can go in and you can type in autism or spirituality or funky brains or whatever, and it'll pull up all the shows that cover that topic. And then you can do that in another way, and it'll cover all of the episodes of any show on that topic.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like having that resource there. What's something that people misunderstand about you?
Oh boy, should I let the cat out of the bag? Yeah, that's fine. You're not on the network yet.
And now my price just went up, right?
Yeah, no, not at all. So something that people misunderstand about me is they see the network and they see how big it is, and they assume that I am literally managing every single show and when they get posted out and who does them and what the content is. And so they just sort of treat me like I'm this mogul. I mean, sometimes, not all the time, but people will sort of, act like, oh my gosh. And the reality is it's a network of people that do their own thing. So it's not my business to manage anybody's stuff. We have disclaimers, please don't talk about how fun it is to club baby harp seals, because that would not be allowed on the network, clearly. But
I'm glad you have a disclaimer for that.
Exactly. No clubbing and no eating puppies. Okay. But I'm not this mastermind that's out there, doing all this stuff that needs some red carpet rolled out as I walk into, forget it. I mean, that's ridiculous. So it's nice to be respected, but sometimes there's this layer of a persona that gets put on me that is so far from the actual reality of what my daily life is. That can be a little disconcerting sometimes.
I can understand how you feel that way. And I like how you can disconnect from it too.
I have to. I mean, I use it to my advantage because if someone is, let's say, super, super narcissistic, and the only reason they want to be a part of this is because they've put all this dazzle and whatever all over it, and they expect me to be a kingmaker. I'm going to make them the next Joe Rogan or Ellen or whatever. I literally have had people say that. So this is not me making something up. And they just aren't a good vibe because everybody is so down to earth. Some of these people are like their pedigree is unreal. Mine is like nothing. And there's just like a Roman scroll of things that they, PhD and an MD, and they wrote a New York Times best-selling book, and they went yachting with Oprah last weekend, whatever. But they're so down to earth, and that's what gets attractive. But every so often somebody, comes in and I'm like, ooh, that's just not gonna vibe. This smells like prima donna. And I will use the fact that they see me as some big mogul to be super too busy to deal with them until they go away. So
I like the honesty.
I've used it to my advantage big time.
Yeah. I like the honesty there. Well, and I also like what you said about like most of the people are down to earth, because that's what people want on a podcast, I think. Well,
yeah,
at least, and maybe not for like the Kardashians or something, but at least in the mental health network, we want down to earth people, people that we can relate to, not somebody who's like totally different, somebody who is like, oh, they're having the same challenges as me.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is my biggest thing too is the education around mental health. Those two words, for some reason, it's the only sector of healthcare where people hear mental health, not so much anymore, but how it was when I started in this, is somehow lumped together with the words mental illness. And neither of those things are bad. Neither should be stigmatized, but they are separate. So people would say, oh yeah, oh, you do a network about mental health. Oh yeah, all those people that have all these problems. And I'm like, no, there are some people with challenges that now we're all in this pandemic. Guess what? We all have dealt with some anxiety and some mental health struggles. But I always try to bring it back down to, okay, you're putting a negative, you're making something negative that doesn't deserve negativity, because mental illness does not, but you're also incorrect in your assumption that, mental health is all about illness. Illness is a part of it. It's one subset underneath the umbrella of mental health. There's also physical activity, spirituality, politics. There's all kinds of things that fall under the mental health umbrella, and illness.
Yes, I'll agree with you there. Yeah, politics is definitely mental illness. Yeah. I'll have to agree with you there. Yeah, we don't talk about politics on Funky Brain Podcast.
That's how you keep your brain funky, by not talking politics. Yeah, good for you.
Tell me something that you wish that you had known before you got into this field.
Into the field of mental health?
Into the field of mental health. Yeah. Is there something you wish you had known earlier? Maybe you were would have been maybe this isn't a good idea.
No, I was dedicated. I have been dedicated to it since I was in my preteens. So there wasn't, I'd say there were some things before I got into podcasting that I would have done differently, but not in terms of the field of mental health. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. So my story is I was a crazy maniac when I was young. So I got sober when I was 31, 17 years ago. At first it's about not drinking. And then you realize it's not about not drinking. It's about growing up and looking the world in the eye and going out and doing all the things that everybody else can do and not having to hide from the world and living. But I didn't realize that I had really done a lot of damage up here, in my funky brain. That's where my book, Funky Wisdom, comes from. And my brain, the show. My friends over the years in recovery, I would go to the recovery meetings back then, and they would be like, oh, Dennis has funky brain. I was going to call my book Funky Brain, but I like wisdom implies growth. So I called it Funky Wisdom. But I like the Funky Brain podcast because it took me years to realize I needed to learn how to act like an adult instead of react. How to respond to situations intelligently, how to have relationships and manage my finances and my health. I had to learn all these things. I didn't intuitively get that when I was younger.
That's so interesting. I was born an adult.
Interesting.
So
I've met some of you before.
I really was. I've had to learn how to be silly. All of those things. And I continue to, much of the chagrin of my 31-year-old son, but because he is known as the sphincter police. If mom's having fun, we need to shut that shit down. And I don't mean I'm having wild drunken parties. I just mean, I'll just go dance, in the street with someone that, and they'll pick me out to do it. Cause I guess my face says, let's play. And he's like, stop. That's my son. That's his life path. But anyway, I came out of the womb just okay, adulting.
Interesting. Yeah, my sister, she's more of that way. She had fun too, but she was way more regimented and disciplined than I was, and still can be. I'm still a kid at heart. I am a coach, but I have a coach too. So I run all my stuff by him, and he'll either be like, wow, that's really good, Dennis, or I don't think so. I don't think that sounds like a good idea. Here, what is our goal? Here's my goal. So we have to first establish goals, and this is what I do as a coach. This is my goal. And so are my actions going to get me to my goal, right? So is hanging out on a beach for a couple of weeks going to help me get to my goal? Probably not, but I'll do that anyway.
Right. Well, that's the great thing about what we do is you can be a coach and you can do a podcast and you can be on Wi-Fi as long as it's available on a beach and you've got somewhere to connect. Well, if you charge up your laptop long enough, then you can do all of this from a beach, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'm debating that right now, but I do like where I live, and we kind of talked about that before the show.
Yeah.
So how do we get in touch with Kristin and the Mental Health Network?
You can literally just type in Mental Health News Radio and you'll find us. And my email on there, I think you can email info@mhnrnetwork.com.
So to get back a little more chit chat. But if you can go back to your 15-year-old self and have a talk with that girl, what would you tell her?
I'd say, don't call your cousin to pick you up to go to that party. Don't call your cousin who was 6 years older and could buy lots of alcohol and weed. I'd probably say that. I'd also say, oh my God, you're going to be so great. You're going to do such great things. So give yourself like you are such a good person. You really are a good person. So try to just not take that whip all that, give yourself a break. You got enough scars on your back from your own self-loathing. Not that I would have listened at 15, but I'd say it because I think it would plant a message. And I'm one of those people that will listen to those things and it'll stop me and go, huh. So I would try to, do that. Less punishment of self.
I like that a lot.
From the thoughts you think, the negative thoughts that you think about yourself.
I agree. Yeah. Or the funky brain.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's like not take ourselves too seriously. I tend to do that too. Yeah. I think a lot of us do. It's our natural reaction is to go into the negative because we're always thinking, we never shut down. It was really fascinating. I was just talking about this guy, Bill Courtwright. He's a great guy.
I've interviewed him.
Oh, you know Bill? So he's really awesome. I mean, the concept that he teaches, the stress mastery. So what it goes back to is, thousands of years ago, we didn't stress the way that we do now. We were more animal-like. And at the end of the day, we're just creatures. We're animals, right? We have this free will and speech and stuff like that. But if you go back thousands of years ago, it was more in the moment. If you look at animals, like they go through, they're out, they don't wake up in the morning and think about like traffic and 401k plans. They're like, all right, am I going to eat today? I need to go find some nuts to eat because I'm like really hungry, and I got to feed the little babies here. So that's what animals do. And we used to be more like that. And over the years, we've evolved into this creature that thinks and worries all the time. It used to be like, all right, a stressful situation comes up, we deal with it and then move on to the next thing. And now it's like, here's this stressful situation. We're going to deal with this for the next minute or hour or whatever. And then there's another stressful one right behind it. And then another. And then we never shut down.
I know it's part of that is that survival instinct. And that's in our DNA because you had to be careful about, some huge saber-toothed tiger that was going to come and eat you. Even though you weren't worried about that all the time, but you did have to be prepared for life or death immediately in a pretty horrifying way. And that, dribbled into our DNA and we still react that way. I think that's the biggest thing. A big thing I've learned this year. I mean, I've always learned this, but it really hit home this year. I really got the opportunity, and I'm so grateful to work on my personal boundaries. Do I have them in business and hard learned? Absolutely. Do I have them with my family? Yeah. But I hadn't learned personal, like with your neighbors or your friends, those kinds of boundaries still were really hard for me to say no. Very hard. It was like I couldn't even get it out of my mouth, and this year has been like, yeah, no. I erected a fence, a huge fence around my property as the physical no, and actually hell no. So it's been really good in that way for me to be like, yeah, okay, this is great. But back to your point of the way that we think and think and think, the amount of punishment that we'll heap upon ourselves for doing healthy things, or at least I've done that, is amazing. Like here I am saying, no, I'm being a warrior for myself. These are all fabulous things. And yet I'm laying in bed 2 weeks later, think I'm a horrible person because I said no. And that person may not like me because I said no. That's ridiculous. So
it is. Yeah,
I love Dr. Joe Dispenza. Have you ever heard of him?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I love that concept of get up and do something different, drive a different way to work or drive to your grocery store a different way, do something completely abnormal from your routine. All of that is so true, and how powerful we are. Like if I'm worried a little bit about money, I can do a couple meditations and boom, not worried now. You can have results that quickly. It's that what we're talking about, escaping the funky brain to be able to do it.
Yeah, no shit. And that, well, first of all, it's bringing awareness to the situation. Okay, I'm overwhelmed. And then it's having the tools and to do that. And an accountability partner, a coach or,
Yes.
therapist, somebody in your life that can keep you accountable. Like you can create all the goals and dreams that you want, but if you don't have the accountability to get there, it's really unlikely that you're going to, because we're driven by our subconscious minds, which sabotages our success. So,
Oh,
and that's
100%.
learned behavior that we've had since maybe we were 5 years old.
Oh, 100%. I feel I tell people when I worked more as a consultant in mental health, and I would go into these different practices, and I'd have to go sit in the offices of therapists and life coaches, because some of the therapy centers had life coaches and also therapists. And so I'd go sit in their office to talk to them about their computer issues. I immediately felt so comfortable sitting on that couch. And they would laugh. They'd be like, oh, other consultants come in and they feel like, they're in the principal's office. And I'm like, oh, no, no, no. I feel so comfortable here. This is my safe space, because I've had such wonderful life coaches, such wonderful therapists for that accountability piece. It's
Yes.
amazing. There's nothing more comfortable for me than sitting on that couch.
Yes. We all need it. And all the biggest figures in the world all have coaches and accountability partners. All of them. Like
Yep.
you think Oprah, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, Bezos, nobody makes decisions on their own. They have like teams of people that they run ideas by. Somebody comes up with an idea and then they run it by each other and then they test it. And sometimes they throw it away. They're like, this isn't a good idea. But nobody makes these big decisions on their own. Why would we on a much smaller level? If we want to have this to go here and we don't know how to get there, ask somebody for help.
I know. And it's so interesting too, because I read this book called The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. Such a great book. It's about a man who lived this just life that a lot of people would look at and go, what a loser, right? And then he died in a horrible car accident. And the story is that he contacted his sister from the afterlife and kept talking to her as he went through all the different stages of what happens in the afterlife. And she's an attorney and all this stuff. And she was like, I'm insane. This is not really happening. I've gone insane. I need to check into a mental hospital, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, she wrote a book about the experience, and whether you believe in that stuff or not, what I loved about the story was he said, you're supposed to come here to learn all kinds of stuff, like this little bit where you're who you are right now is meant to be filled with activity. So make it interesting. Like you're supposed to be here to learn. And so make a lot of mistakes, because you're going to look at that later from this other vantage point, and in a loving way and in a non-shameful way, you're going to see why you made all these choices and how they were important to your soul's growth. And just reading that, even if somebody doesn't, believe those things or not, it gave such permission to be like, oh, okay, so I am really mucking it up out there. And that's a good thing.
It is a great thing. And I love that, making mistakes. Like you don't fail. I love this one. And I stole this from Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer. And it's like nobody fails at anything. All we do is produce results. So what do you do with those results that you produce? So if I throw you a ball, if I throw you a football and you drop the football, are you a football failure? No. So I'll throw you the football again, and now you'll catch it. Now you're a football success. And it's the same thing. If you're a real estate agent and you have this big deal and the deal falls through, are you a real estate failure? No. The next month you sell a house and now you're a success. So all we do is produce results. What do you do with those results? Right. And we get stuck in that failure stuff. Our brains take us on these awful trips. But I think go out, make mistakes. Every day is a new experience. Every morning I go and I run around the lake here. I watch the sunrise come up every morning. I take such awesome pictures. In fact, I give my clients this new exercise. It's called 5 Beautiful Pictures. So all of us spend 23 hours and 50 minutes within arm's reach of our phone. Everybody to take at least 5 beautiful pictures every day and send me at least one every day. So at the end of every day, my phone blows up with all these pictures. And it doesn't have to be a sunrise or a sunset. It could be your dog or a blade of grass or a flower. But
Or like the donkey that I sent you.
or the donkey that you sent me, like that is a beautiful picture. And when you took that picture and when you look at it, it puts gratitude in your heart and it makes you smile and it makes you feel good. It produces the dopamine and some serotonin to help you calm down. And why not do more of that?
See,
So
that's why you're a great coach, because of those things. When we're going through our daily lives, we don't think about how important it is to have someone like you that says, take 5 pictures, because it's those little pivot, and you do enough of those. I always say it's, deposits into the bank of you.
Yeah.
We're constantly pushing stuff out there. But, got to put some deposits in, and having a life coach is what I love about it. Life coaching is that, you got that person to remind you, wait a minute, you're the star of this movie. So what are you doing to, help you?
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. And actually, one more time, let's give your contact information out. Tell them how to get in touch with you.
Absolutely. Anyone can Google mental health news or mental health news radio, and we're all over the internet. That'll get you to the website. You can email info@mhnrnetwork.com. And, it's an encyclopedia of info when you get on Google and Google Mental Health News Radio.
It is. It's really awesome. And so thanks again, Kirstin Walker. So great to see you. I'm sure it's not going to be our last time hanging out. And thanks everybody for tuning in to the Funky Brain podcast today. I hope you heard something useful. I sure did. And have a beautiful day today. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. So you can't think your way into a new way of acting. You have to act your way into a new way of thinking and being. Hi, I'm Dennis Berry, best-selling author, speaker, and life coach for addiction recovery. So many people are stuck in their addiction, whether it's like drugs or alcohol or food or shopping or sex or money, and they think they could just stop or try to figure it out on their own, but they don't change anything in their lives. Nothing changes if nothing changes. In order for change to happen, you have to change something. My clients will be like, oh, I'll stop tomorrow, or if this happens, then I stop, or someday I'll just give it up. And then they just sit around and think, and hope for different or better results, but it doesn't happen. You have to take action. Action most people aren't willing to take. People don't become willing until they're in enough pain, me included. And unfortunately, they wait and they wait. And time passes by. Even if you are willing, you don't even know where to begin. And that's where I come in. In my best-selling book, Funky Wisdom, A Practical Guide to Life, I talk about the how approach. How do I get sober? How do I stop doing drugs? How do I become healthier? How do I have more successful relationships? How do I become more financially successful? And the answer is how. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. I have to honestly admit that there's a problem. I have to honestly admit that things aren't going well and there needs to be changes. And then once I do that, the door opens and I become open to seeing new ways of living. And then I become willing to make those changes. You can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. That's why I'm here to help. And, I've been working with clients for over 15 years and helping them get clean and sober and change their lives and achieve inner peace and success. If you or somebody you love is struggling and doesn't know where to begin and how to make those changes to get to where they need to be, give me a call. Not tomorrow or in a week from now when you're hungover and your life is falling apart. Call now. Start making that change today and you'll be glad that you did. I'm sending you love and good vibes. Have a great day today.